Hey everybody, Lee Livesay here with the Mossy Oak fishing team. We're talking about something really cool today. I'm going to tell you everything I know about glide baits. The first thing to know about glide baits, what is a glide bait? Super simple. We call them big baits, but they're anything and everything. You got them from 4 inches to 14 inches, a couple ounces to a pound. A glide bait is a swim bait that's got a single joint in it, just like that. It's got a single hinge joint and just a swim bait body. Most of them have 2 treble hooks, just like this one right here, and they're designed to glide. Some of them are more twitchy, darty, and then some of them have a big, huge glide. It's super simple. It's just a swim bait that draws fish's attention. That's the huge thing about a glide bait, man. They draw. I call them draw baits a bunch over glide baits because it's all about drawing that fish's attention and getting them to show themselves or react and bite the bait. You're not always catching them with glide baits. Sometimes I use them just to find fish too, but that's it. This super simple swim bait with one hinge in it that glides back and forth. That's what a glide bait is. So what are you doing with a glide bait? The spectrum's endless on what you can do with it. But to me, it's just having the draw power. When I'm throwing a glide, I'm usually throwing one over 8 inches and I'm just drawing the attention of those bass. It puts them in a trance almost. They're either gonna show themselves or they're gonna react and eat it. And I use that both ways. Sometimes it's locating them, whether it's on a dock or a seawall or a weed edge, whatever it is, locating that bass, getting them to draw out towards that bait and show himself, and then going in there and figuring out how to catch them on a different bait. Or catching them, obviously, is what we want. That glide bait has a lot of draw power. It puts them in a trance, just that wide glide, twitching. Man, they think a glide bait is alive. They think it's like this one, a shad or a brim, whatever color you're throwing it. They think it's real and it draws their attention. They have to come out and look at it. It's just a really cool bait to draw a fish, whether you're catching them on a dock or just seeing them on the dock and coming back and catching them with something else. So use a glide bait for those two things, not only catching them, but drawing their attention, finding them, and catching them with another bait. Now the next question, when do I throw a glide bait? Where do I throw a glide bait? That's an answer that the fish are gonna answer for you. But for me, I always keep one tied on year round, and where, man, it's endless. I throw them on docks, rock piles, grass lines, sea walls, big points in Texas, shell beds, anywhere where those bass, especially a bigger bass, has an ambush point. You're throwing them on ambush points, whether it's a big stump on a flat or a big shell bar on Lake Sam Rayburn. Forward-facing sonar has taught us that you can throw them out deep over brush piles and on these deep schools of fish. So the more we learn about glide baits, the more opportunities, occasions, and areas we learn that we can catch fish on them. I throw them everywhere and anywhere and test them, throw them anywhere and everywhere and just see what you can figure out. That's what I do. I throw them year round everywhere I can. So what are we trying to mimic when we're throwing glide baits? And that has, 2 different answers. Obviously color. This is looks like a big gizzard shad. And that's what I throw a lot. But then sometimes you might have a brim color, this same size and shape, and it's resembling a brim. Maybe a carp pattern. You're trying to be around carp or drum. You can paint them and have any color you want, but then you'll change shapes to, like, this is a 6-inch draw. It's a lot more slender. Even though this is a shad pattern, this could mimic a rainbow trout. Some kind of trout that's more slender and long. So you're gonna look at 2 different things when you're throwing glides on what you're mimicking: color and shape of your bait. And that's about it. You're either gonna mimic something with the shape of a glide or the color of the glide. And that's it, super simple. Next question is, which bait do I buy? What glide do I buy? What's your favorite glide bait? Man, there's hundreds of them out there on the market that work. Anything from 4 inches to 14 inches, anything and everything in between. For me, I keep it pretty simple, man. I throw this one anywhere from Florida to Texas to New York. It's a 6-inch draw. It's a 9-inch glide bait. You can glide with it, you can twitch with it, you can burn it, you can slow it down. You can do just about anything with this. I love the slender profile, kind of between a shad and a trout, that you can catch anything. And the other thing I like about the slender profile on the draw is it's easy to hook them when they eat it. It's not just a big chunk of you know, plastic in their mouth. When they hit this, they get a lot of hooks. That's my favorite one, is the 6 cents draw. I love color-wise. I like my shad patterns, just like this one. Whites, kind of grays, anything natural, gizzard shad style, really draws those fish. That's my favorite one, the 6 cents draw. All right, so you just bought an expensive glide bait. Tie the right knot. It's that simple. You know, you don't want to throw a $150, $250 bait off into the lake and lose your investment. So I tie 2 knots, and they both depend on line type. If I'm throwing mono, I'm just tying a Palomar knot. You know, everybody knows the Palomar knot. Super simple. I tie that one with my glide baits with mono. When I'm throwing fluorocarbon, I tie the double San Diego jam knot. It's the only one I throw on fluorocarbon. It's super simple. It's a big knot, but it won't break and you won't lose your bait. I'm gonna show you how to tie it real quick. You're gonna double your line, pull your tag in out, both sides, and then you're gonna loop this loop around your main line in that tag 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that bottom loop you have, you want to stick it through the loop where my 2 fingers were at the top. Just like that. Pull it through. Don't tighten it too tight. Now you want to moisten that fluorocarbon. You know, fluorocarbon's real hard and fragile. Moisten everything up and hold your tag in and your main line. Slide it down. You're going to hear that knot pop. You want to pull your main line tight and then pull your tag in tight. You hear that pop? That's that knot cinching down. Make sure everything's good and tight. And then cut your tag in. The thing about the double San Diego jam, you're going to have 3 tag ends. You cut that loop and your tag in. Now you've got 3 tag ends and the strongest knot you can tie. What setup do you use with glides and how do I throw them? There's a few different things there, you know, depending on the size. You know, you've got a 9-inch skinnier profile there, and then you've got a 9-inch fatter, heavier profile there. and each bait's different on retrieve and setup. But generically speaking, we're gonna talk about, you know, a 9-inch glide like this one right here. I'm throwing it on 25-pound fluorocarbon. You can throw it on mono as well. I do both. A big rod is a must, you know. 7-11, 8-foot, medium heavy to extra heavy, depending on what you have. You know, I like to throw this one right here. This is a 6 cents draw, it's 9 inches. I like to throw it on a 7-11 heavy, 25-pound fluorocarbon, and that's my setup. I like a high-speed reel. A lot of people like a mid-range ratio reel so they can reel it a little slower, but I can always slow it down, and that's it. You know, some people can, you know, you have a little bit smaller glide, you know, maybe a 6-inch, 4-inch, you know, throw it on 15 to 20-pound fluorocarbon. And then when you get on those huge glides, like Moby or something like that, you're talking about 30-pound fluoro, 30-pound mono, stuff like that, and a bigger rod. So you need that big rod for a few things. Obviously, just handling the weight of the bait, but at the same time making a long cast, letting that bait load up on a cast and lobbing that bait out there. There's a few different retrieves you can do with your glide bait. You know, a glide is meant to go really wide and glide wide. So like this tater hog, it's got a great big wide glide. That's real pretty, puts them in a trance. This one right here, a little bit more slender. It's more of a twitch bait. It still has a pretty glide, but like that tater hog or your bigger, wider glides, I use just a nice steady 1/2-inch retrieve, nice, steady, slow. That bait just glides. Every 4 or 5 cranks, if I'm not catching nothing, I might twitch it a little bit just to give it something. And then when you get on a glide like this that's more of a twitch bait glide, man, you can really get erratic with it. Throw it out there and I might glide it 4 or 5 cranks, and then I might speed it up. Twitch it, kind of like a jerk bait, and you'll see that bait glide back and forth and twitch. You can turn it all the way around 180 and get those fish really aggressive. And you say, okay, so when do I do that in a retrieve? Well, it's usually like on the edge of a dock. You know, I'll throw it up on the edge of a dock or a seawall, whatever it is, get that cadence going of that glide. And when I get to an ambush point at the end of a dock, edge of a seawall, edge of a grass line, whatever it is, over the top of a brush pile, that's when I'll get real erratic with it, speeding it up, twitching it real fast, trying to get those fish that might be following it to react and eat that bait. That's a setup for me. big long rod, big fluorocarbon or mono, and try different retrieves. Try gliding it, try twitching it, try getting real erratic with it. It's simple, but try everything. There's never an exact answer. Try different retrieves, and like I said, keep a big rod and big line for sure, because you're throwing a big bait trying to catch a big bass.